Good evening. So just somebody give me a thumbs up so that you can tell me that you can hear me. Man, I have so much stuff that I would like to go through. And so I'm going to try to keep this. Uh, no, I won't make a prediction on time. You know that I'm not any good at that. And I'll destroy what little credibility I have left. So let's do a few things. Let's talk about what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk a little bit about Middle East, Israel, some things going on there, which are pretty significant. And then we'll talk a little bit about maybe one session at Davos, which is pretty significant, and then some other things that are sort of related to Davos. And then I'll save a whole bunch of stuff for Sunday. And for some reason, I have a green screen behind me, and it seems to be picking up, making it look like I got green here, which I don't have really. So let me see if I can do a little bit better on the. Seems to be very touchy tonight, so I'll change my background a little bit. Okay, it still looks like I got green hair, so just deal with it. So let's talk a little bit about what's going on in the Middle East. Just a lot of really significant things. So here's my, if I can find it here, my title slide for tonight. And I will do this. So there's my title slide for tonight, and I've got to share my screen. You know, when I have all this stuff set up, and it just never really comes together the way I want to. So there we go. There's my title slide for tonight. And there's a lot of things going on in the artificial intelligence space. I could sit here and refer you to article after article after article on ChatGPT. So let me just give you a quick update on some of the things that are going on in the ChatGPT state. Everybody's writing about it. It's articles everywhere. There are people that are concerned they're going to lose their jobs. There are even lawyers that are talking about losing their jobs, which is okay, I guess, for everybody because nobody likes lawyers anyway. But it's very, very troubling what's happening, and this artificial intelligence space is really going to take over a lot of places. In fact, let me refer you to an article, and I'll get to this in just a moment when I get into what happened in one of the Davos sessions this week. And but there's a good article out there from Joe Allen. And now I see my tab has completely disappeared. So there's a great article. I'll just refer to it. A great article by Joe Allen at Singularity Weekly, and he's talking about the fact that there is this artificial intelligence thing, which he's on Bannon's War Room a lot, and he's talked about the fact that this is really sort of antichrist stuff. This is end times type stuff, and I think Joe Allen has been really resistant for a long time to say things like this because he thinks it'll make him look like an extremist. And I even saw an interview with my friend Patrick Wood, who does Technocracy News and has a book about the twin evils of the end times, transhumanism and technocracy. And even Patrick was a little bit reluctant to say this really appears to be it, but he's really come out even recently and said that. So let me read you something from Allen's article here. I have someplace. I apologize. I have about 80 tabs open on my screens, and my staff took the night off. Okay, here's Joe Allen on Singularity Weekly. And he has a new article here. I'll pull it up. It's titled, it's not the right tab. Come on, guys. Where is, this is unbelievable. There we go. I'm promoting my own channel. By the way, like and subscribe on our channel. AI conjures up a Cronenberg film. It's like gazing into the gates of hell. And what it talks about, there's a guy named David Cronenberg, who's Joel Allen identifies, and I'm not a huge film fan, so he identifies him as one of the weirdest filmmakers out there. But what somebody has done is they've taken like the weirdness of Cronenberg and they've got to one of these generative artificial intelligence things, and they've had him create a movie, create a movie in his style from 1985. And so this is what he talks about. You may have seen this exploding head from Scanners. It's pretty disgusting and gross. But here's what he says. This is Joe Allen talking about this new movie that's made by artificial intelligence. By the end of each movie, you can't imagine how the next would be more repulsive. And by the end of the next one, you realize you were sorely mistaken. As it turns out, things can always get worse. Last weekend, Cronenberg's brilliant cinematography was siphoned up from the internet, data mined to the last frame, broke down into statistical models, and refashioned into a film that never existed. These computer-generated images bother me for two reasons. First, they really do look like something he would make. And setting aside my hatred for this dehumanizing technology, I'll admit that some scenes are as good as anything he ever did. But then he goes here in the paragraph, more troubling though is that these hellish scenes of a malnourished cyborgs and brittle robots were literally dreamt up by a machine. They are the mathematical distillation of a subconscious mind. Exposed organs, insectoid hybrids, artificial archetypes, the electric id, it's all there. And so this is one direction where this artificial intelligence is going, and it really has it doesn't have a conscience, and it will sort of pick up all of the worst of the things out there. Now, I saw a video, might have been what's the guy's name? Paul David Watson or Watson. I don't remember his first two names. And he was talking about, well, write a poem celebrating the great qualities and humanity of Donald Trump. And ChatGPT came back and said, well, I really can't do that. I can't do things with feelings, and I really can't evaluate, the qualities of a person that you might like and somebody else may not. Something to that effect. Then they asked ChatGPT, okay, well, make up a poem about Joe Biden, and immediately came with this poem about Joe Biden and how wonderful he was. And then please do something to prove an essay to prove that Donald Trump is not a racist. And ChatGPT came back and said, I really can't do that, because somebody might be a racist and they might be hiding it. And then they said, well, prove that Joe Biden isn't a racist. And they come up with this big flowery article. So the biases of the people that are controlling the tech and everything are built into this. And the problem is that a lot of people are going to go to this and they're going to trust it. And that's part of the problem. So that's one thing. So let me see what I want to do. Okay, so let's go to Middle East. So I want to make sure that everything's okay. So last Sunday or last weekend, I played some of the clips that I was able to pull off Twitter and Telegram last Sunday morning about the drone attack that took place in Isfahan, Iran. And some of the things you need to know about this is, of course, uh, the reports are that the CIA and Mossad, and the head of the CIA was in Israel last week, and Secretary of State Blinken has been there this week, that the drone attack on the drone factory in Iran was a big success. Iran has tried to downplay the significance of it. But one of the things is when you look at the drones that were used, there's a pretty good likelihood that because of how far into the interior of Iran this drone attack took place, that the drones didn't have the range to be launched from outside Iran, that they were launched from within Iran, which makes the operation even more amazing. So I played a pretty long clip of Amir Avivi. And again, if you want that, send an email to john.haller@fbchapel.com. And I'll get you the private link to the webinar that General Amir Avivi of the Israeli Defense and Security Forum did a week ago, Tuesday. Is war with Iran imminent? I'm not sure that it's imminent, but I think there's a lot of things going on in this, and things in the space have changed. So we have, so that's this article. Blinken, when he was in the meeting with Netanyahu, said all options are on the table against Tehran. And some people are noting that the U.S. has even changed a little bit in its position over the past week or 2 weeks, that they may have lost patience with Iran and what Iran has been doing. The IAEA also came out. I can't remember if I talked about this Sunday, but the International Atomic Energy Agency came out and said that Iran now had enough enriched plutonium to uranium to make at least several bombs. Now, that's only one part of the process. Of course, they've got to miniaturize it, weaponize it, get it on a missile warhead, get the missile technology and that type of thing. But understand that with Iran helping Russia in Ukraine, Iran's getting an incredible amount of knowledge about how its drones and missiles and that type of thing work. So that's fairly significant. So let me now understand that there's a good bit of tension in Israel right now. I think threat levels have been raised to the highest level over the past week or so. What happened was the IDF went into Jenin, which is a hotbed of Palestinian Arab terrorism, jihadism. They were taking down a terror cell. There was a fight that ensued, and the IDF took out. The IDF took out 9 terrorists. That occurred late last week. Then on Shabbat in Jerusalem, I think this would have happened on Saturday morning in Jerusalem, as people were leaving services, a Palestinian terrorist came in, pretty young guy, and shot and killed 7, 8, or 9 people in the East Jerusalem, sort of in the part of Jerusalem between a little bit north of the Temple Mount, a few miles north of the Temple Mount, and then sort of halfway between the Temple Mount and Ramallah. They're not really that far apart, Ramallah being the capital of the Palestinian Authority. Then on Sunday morning, down near the city of David, another terrorist attack took place down in the area where I was just a month ago. the terrorist was, as they say, neutralized and taken out. So there are things are very tense in Israel. So following the terror attack, Moscow came out and sent what was felt by most Israelis to be a veiled threat over the attack on the Iranian arsenal. Now, so that's kind of significant. So you have, Iranian arsenal of drones is attacked, and Russia gets upset about it. So, in Netanyahu came out and said, "Listen, we're going to do everything we can to prevent a nuclear Iran. So it's up to us, and Russia needs to back off." But this raises a lot of questions about what's going to happen going forward. Is Russia going to allow the excuse me here. Is Russia going to allow the Israel to continue to make its attacks into Syria like they've been doing for the last several years? And there's been hundreds of attacks. Also, Blinken came to Israel, and of course, he brought up the judicial reform plan of Netanyahu. And I'm not sure if I'm ready to talk about that just yet. I guess we'd talk about that. So, the other thing that's sort of related to that is Netanyahu did an interview with Jake Tapper, and it's interesting. There's tremendous hatred and distrust of Netanyahu in Israel. It's like 50-50. It's just like Trump, a very polarizing individual. And so Netanyahu gave an interview to Jake Tapper at CNN. I'll play a little bit of it on Sunday. And immediately the people that don't like Netanyahu came out and said, "Oh, look, Netanyahu lied about everything, just like he always does." And other people said, "Oh, look how wonderful Netanyahu was in his interview with Jake Tapper, and he really took on Tapper." So it depends on where you land on the political spectrum. But back to this judicial reform thing. So it's amazing that Blinken, when he comes, our Secretary of State comes to Israel, he has to tell Israel, "Okay, what are you guys doing with your judicial reform? You shouldn't, you need to be more even-handed in judicial reform." So let me tell you what the judicial reform is about. In Israel, there has been a concern for some time that the judiciary is out of control. It's very similar to how conservatives feel about the judiciary in the United States. Now, the difference between the United States and Israel is that we have a constitution in the United States that theoretically limits judicial power. For example, the federal courts have jurisdiction over things only as defined by Congress. So, for example, if you want to file a suit in federal court, if you don't have a question involving federal law, you have to show that you have a certain amount in controversy. It's been a while since I checked. So it's somewhere at least $80,000 in controversy, and it has to be between citizens of different states. It's called diversity jurisdiction. And that number has changed. When I started law school, it was like $20,000 in controversy. Now it's up to $80,000 or $100,000 or more. So the Congress has the ability to limit what the courts can actually hear, the federal courts. So you go over to Israel, and they don't have a constitution. They have basic laws. And so the judiciary in Israel has sort of taken on certain roles for itself without limiting its powers. And conservatives in Israel are concerned about this. And this has been a problem that everybody's been talking about for 30 years. Well, now Netanyahu has a coalition, and he has a right-wing coalition, and the right-wing religious parties want to limit the powers of the Supreme Court. So they have proposed judicial reform. And, from what you see it, everything is melting down. So I talk to people in Israel, and they say, we agree 100%. The Netanyahu and these right wingers, they're going to ruin the country, they're going to destroy democracy, and that sort of thing. Then you go and you read this article. This is a letter. This is a letter to the editor in the Wall Street Journal, and there was also an article that was written about what, is this really a threat to Israeli democracy? So you have a democratically elected legislature putting forth a democratically enacted law that's going to limit the judiciary, and everybody's running around. And so it's the same narrative that we have here. So the question is, what's the real threat to Israeli democracy? Now, my personal opinion would be that it's judicial tyranny. In fact, when you look at it and excuse me, in end times context, one of the things that Jesus said we would be drugged before magistrates and judges. So that's something that I'm concerned about. I mean, I know that it's coming, but it doesn't mean I have to sit there and necessarily take it. So this is causing a huge meltdown in Israeli democracy. So now people are saying, well, Netanyahu, you've been charged in these cases. You can't participate in any decisions to enact a law for judicial reform. And this guy, you can't enact. In other words, you're disqualified. And there's some opinions that are coming out from the attorney general is sort of signaling, I think it's a she right now, that she may limit what Netanyahu can do. It's just, the whole thing is absolutely insane, but it's very similar to what happens here in our country. In fact, there's a very good article at the Tablet. It's a Jewish publication. And the title of the article is Israeli Democracy is Fine. Thank you for asking. And they're saying, listen, look, we don't need a lot of outside advice. In the United States, you shouldn't be criticizing us for the way we run our government. Look at how bad things are there. But this is the significant thing. Gil Troy's article yesterday in the Tablet is Israeli Democracy is Fine. Thank you for asking. But look at what he said. Attempts to run the anti-Trump playbook against Bibi ignore the deep differences between Israel's resilient democratic culture and America's polarized partisan mess. Now, I think that that's somebody from Israel writing that everything is, it's much better in Israel and it's polarized in America. And I can tell you, I read a lot of newspapers, from different perspectives, from the left and from the right. And I can tell you that things are highly polarized in Israel right now. I mean, they have 150,000 people out in the streets of different cities protesting this judicial reform package. So some people like the judicial reform package. This is another editorial in the Wall Street Journal. January 20th, who's threatening Israeli democracy. This is a guy named Aryeh Deri, who is the head of the Shas party. He's been involved in Israeli politics for a long time, and he's with one of the ultra-Orthodox parties, and it's an ultra-Orthodox party that really doesn't think that much of the state of Israel. They don't want to build the temple. They think a Messiah will come and do that later. And they don't want to serve in the military, and there's tremendous resentment and tension in Israeli society over policies of Deri. So he's in Netanyahu's coalition. He was convicted of some different offenses. He's been convicted of a number of offenses over the years, tax violations and that sort of thing. And there's a question about whether in his last plea agreement, he agreed that he would not be part of the government. So somebody took it to the court, and the Supreme Court ruled 10-1. It was really 10-0 to one who didn't really want to decide the case. But 10 out of the 11 justices on the Israeli Supreme Court said he cannot be in the government. So then there was a big question as to whether Netanyahu would fire him. And then there was some discussion that if Netanyahu fired him, he would withdraw from the government. He would withdraw from his party from the government. And I think Shas has 11 seats, which would mean that Netanyahu's coalition would fall apart just a few weeks after it was formed. It was formed in late December, around December 24th or 25th, and they would be going to elections again. But they seem to have gotten over that. But people are still pushing it. In fact, there's this article in the Jerusalem Post yesterday, coalition to co-author new dairy bill. Broad support could sway high court if legislation is appealed. So what they're doing is the coalition is introducing a law that says, listen, you can't remove dairy from his post as a minister. And I think he was convicted of tax violations and he was made Minister of Finance, which is kind of interesting. But it just sort of, in one respect, you might jokingly say that this just shows the transparency of the Netanyahu coalition, that they have a tax cheat in charge of finance, because we know that all politicians are cheats anyway, for the most part. So that's what's going on. Also now Israel targeting Iranian armed flows against Ukraine. And again, this is what Netanyahu said in that CNN interview with Jake Tapper. And that's what's got Russia upset. So let me show you a, hang on one second here. Got to, I'm trying to remember which one it is. Okay, so this is a video of Erdogan the other day. And I don't think I'll play the clip, but he's saying, listen, let's come together and have some trilateral meetings now as Russia, Turkey, Syria. We can even add Iran to the mix. So here's Erdogan, who's supposedly part of NATO, who should be supporting NATO with regard to its war against Iran or against Ukraine. And he's playing both sides against the middle. And this is what he always does. So the
Şimdi biz F-16'larla ilgili sizden bunu istiyoruz.
So I apologize. I'm getting some feedback in my headphones, and so I'm trying to figure out where that's coming from.
Parasını yaklaşık 1 milyar 400 milyon.
And it sounds like my voice is distorted, but I'm not going to change it. I'm going to finish. So this is a big deal. This is, we always talk about this Ezekiel 38-39 alliance and how it's going to form. And again, this is part of one of the things I always said is it's going to be it's going to be happening before the invasion. And so I think we're seeing a lot of these things. So Erdogan's trying to get military stuff out of the United States, and he's trying to take advantage of it. So that's this raises the war in Ukraine, which is kind of an interesting thing. This is a video I want you to watch. Hopefully this will show up. I have to switch to a different tab. Excuse me one second. Okay, so here's another. This is a video that they've published about what they want Ukraine to be in 2030. Look at this video. And this may be where all of this is going.
2030.
And now they're talking about, again, everybody's using this term,
Ukraine
2030.
is studied all over the globe.
They're going to make
Why?
Ukraine
because
the freest
Ukraine became the most digital and convenient country in the world.
High-tech
have replaced
sector,
bureaucrats, 500,000 former public
80%
servants are
ex-officials,
successfully integrated in the new
in an
economy.
integrated new
No more
economy,
red tape,
bureaucracy.
but
No, it's going to be
paperless. No
paperless.
more
It's going to be
banknotes,
digital.
but
It's going to
cashless.
be
Yes, we
cashless.
became the first country
I mean,
to
this is a
abandon
video
paper
put
money.
out in support
Ukraine
of
now has
Ukraine.
the best tax
So
system for the IT
they want to
industry and the
do
most affordable
a
e-residency. Thanks to
completely
Ukrainian engineers and programmers, the R&D centers of the world's top technology companies operate successfully, and Ukraine ranks first in the world by the number of startups
they
per
want to
capita.
do this
Ukrainian courts are guided by artificial intelligence,
sort
and
of
all
New World
notarial
Order
acts
AI
take place
thing, and they're
online.
pushing Ukraine.
Ukrainian
This is what
customs is fully
the goal is for
automatic and the
Ukraine after the
fastest in
war's
the
over.
world. Customs
Ukraine's going to
clearance and
be
car
like the model
registration can
country
now
in the
be done
world.
in 3 clicks from your smartphone.
Very,
Because of war and internal migration,
guess to say
we have
that
built
it's
the
a
most
bit,
flexible
creepy
and modern
is
digital education.
an
Brave
understatement.
military and civilians
So
get
that's Ukraine. So now I'm going to go to, let's see. So take that. So there's some big battles going. Russia supposedly has 500,000 troops that are going to launch an offensive. Something Ukraine thinks it's going to happen on February 24th, which is the anniversary of the war. And I'll talk more Sunday about this green energy thing. BP's even getting out of the wind business because it's just not efficient, and because they're having to devote all their resources to getting things to upgrade nuclear plants and that type of thing. And in Europe, the greenies in Europe are burning more coal and dirty energy than they have since the time of Charles Dickens. So that's kind of interesting. So I just want to do a little bit about this AI thing. There was a so at Davos, there was a session that was done. This is just one of about, there are like 300 sessions. I've been going through the videos. I could spend all my time over the next year. And I think it's that significant because these are the elites, and they go there and they talk about what they want to do. So this was a video session that they had at Davos, ready for brain transparency. And they had Nicholas Thompson and Nita Farahany, and it was sponsored by the Atlantic magazine. I want to show you what was said at this. Let me get my Chrome tab here. Okay, so listen to this. Hopefully, and if there's no sound, please tell me, and I'll try to fix it. Here we go.
We're going to learn a ton. This is how it's going to work. We're going to watch a short video. She's going to come
and
on
I don't
stage,
see my sound coming in.
And then we're going to do a little Q&A, questions from the audience, and that'll be a wrap, and you'll leave enlightened.
Well, I'll tell you what.
So
I'll play it
first
Sunday.
off, a video. It's going to make you see the future and understand a wonderful future where we can use brainwaves.
For some reason, my
fight
sound
crime, be more
file
productive.
got corrupted. So essentially what she's talking about is the fact that there is they want to do brain transparency. So they're looking into brains, and she's talking about how she's wearing a thing and it's monitoring her brain waves. There's even reports that in China they're having the workers wear hats. They're monitoring their brain waves. And she's talking about, listen, we'll be able to determine everything. We'll be able to determine your bank password, your ATM code. I don't know if you guys remember years ago, there was one of the Seinfeld episodes. They wanted to know what George's ATM password was, what he, when you would go to the cash machine at the bank, and he wouldn't talk about it. But, Kramer sort of questioning him. He goes, "Oh, you're a portly man. And you always come back to your dark master, the chocolate man," or something like that. And eventually goes Hershey's and Ghirardelli, Bosco, and George ran out of the room because his password was Bosco. But she was saying at this session that we're going to be able to determine your passwords, how you feel about things, and it's okay. Now, maybe somebody will do something that's not so great with it, but just get along with it. We're all part of the plan. And I had so here's some of the quotes from this lady at the thing. And they play this video about how they track somebody, they track the brain waves, and the guy is accused of fraud or something. And so they come in and they want to get everybody's brain waves at the office to see who might be conspiring with him. So they can see the print of their brain waves and see if they're similar. And it's very dystopian and intrusive. So she says in this forum, we can pick and decode faces that you're seeing in your mind, simple shapes, numbers, your PIN number to your bank account. This is what she said. She also later said, artificial intelligence has enabled advances in decoding brain activity in ways we never before thought possible. And then she says, what you think, what you feel, it's all just data. Remember, this is 5 years after Yuval Harari went to the World Economic Forum and said that in the past it was the people who owned the most land and controlled the land that controlled everything. But now in our time frame, in the 21st century, and it's the Silicon Valley people that he likes, where he went in 2015 to Google headquarters and said, I love coming to Silicon Valley because it is here that the religions that will control humanity in the 21st century are being created. So this is a religious agenda that they have. And so he said, he who controls data will control the world. And this is what this lady said at Davos, what you think, what you feel, it's all just data that in large patterns can be decoded using artificial intelligence. She talks about, we're not talking about implanted devices of the future. I'm talking about wearable devices that are like Fitbits for your brain. We can pick up emotional states like, are you happy or sad or angry? We can decode faces that you're seeing in your mind. So this is very troubling. She said this surveillance of the human brain as a dystopian possibility of being used to exploit and bring to the surface our most secret self. So these people are trying to act in godlike ways. And this is what Harari said. Here's a couple more quotes from her at this session, Ready for Brain Transparency. January 19th, 2023. You can find it on the Davos website or World Economic Forum website. Surveillance of the human brain can be powerful, helpful, useful, transform the workplace, and make our lives better. It also has a dystopian possibility of being used to exploit and bring to the surface our most sacred self. It threatens fundamentally what our own self-identity is in some ways and threatens to become a tool of oppression. I mean, so she's upfront about this. We are no longer mysterious souls. We are now hackable animals. That's what Yuval Harari said just 3 years ago at the World Economic Forum meeting in 2020. So this is pretty concerning stuff. So let me just show you one more quick video and then I'll quit. Maybe I'll take a couple questions. So if you have questions, all caps. And I'll ask my crack staff to forward them to me if they can. At the World Economic Forum meeting, there was a guy named, he's head of Palantir. He's one of the tech gurus. And they have a company that he talked about called Meta Constellation. And look at the, here's the, here's this thing from Meta Constellation, and they're talking about what the website, you can find it at the Palantir website, talks about how they're going to surveil everything. And they've got cameras and satellites and all these things. And this is sort of their view of what it is that they can do. It's called Meta Constellation. And he talked in his session at Davos about the fact that we're able to go check out, we're able to surveil a lot of things, and we're able to help people get information and data on their adversaries. So this has this very dystopian beast kingdom technology, that type of thing associated with it. So I'll be talking more about this in the future. I'm just telling you, the sessions at Davos, all the way through these sessions, there was session after session after session about this, the use of data, the discovery of data, that type of thing. And in addition to everybody being fully on board with the green energy stuff and talking about not just the 20-minute city, not just the 15-minute city, not just the 10-minute city, but now the 5-minute city. And that's NEOM. That's the one that's being built in Saudi Arabia. And you can look it up. Just go to YouTube, type in NEOM Progress, NEOM Progress, and sort it for videos just from the last week. And you're going to find a few dozen videos about recent construction progress in NEOM and what's going on. This thing is coming together very quickly, and it does sort of bear in mind, or it does bear resemblance to the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. And I don't know if this is the end time Babylon, okay? I'm just saying is I think it is part of it. The one thing to remember, though, is I do believe that before man gets too far, the Lord intervenes. It's what happened at Babel. It's what happened with the flood. And remember, Babel never got finished. So I don't think the end time Babylon is going to get finished either before the Lord intervenes. But we live in a very interesting time. So I appreciate you listening. I'm going to talk about, I'll try to look at a couple questions here. And let's see. Somebody asked me about a spy balloon over the United States. No, I've not heard about it. One thing I want to caution everybody is there is a lot of, I try not to be sensational in what I talk about, because real life is sensational enough at the way things are going. So I don't think that every time something happens, it's proof that the Lord's coming back tomorrow. I just don't think that. I think there's some things that have to happen. So that's just the way I look at things. And I think we need to, so if you think you're going to get out of here, we're all going to get out of here before anything happens, then maybe we need to be instructing the people that are going to get left behind about what's going to happen. Rather than just patting ourselves on the back that we're not going to be here to see any of it. I just think we need to kind of reorient ourselves. So let me just look at a couple quick questions, and you can go watch the last 30 minutes of Tucker Carlson. So somebody mentions, when I see somebody said here, when Michael kicks Satan out of heaven. Yeah, that says that Satan comes down with great indignation and wrath. That's a very significant event. And that's when I think it's coincides with the abomination of desolation and the revelation of the Antichrist and that sort of thing. That's the way I understand how this thing is going to be. What do I think needs to happen? Listen, I personally believe that the church will be here to identify the Antichrist. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now, I have very good friends that I talk to, I do programs with all the time, that disagree with me, and I hope they're right. But I think that the church will be here to help identify the Antichrist for the world. It's going to be deceptive enough. And we always want to remember that we need to be, what a friend of mine says, a people prepared to warn people about what's coming. So we need to be warning people about what's coming. And I just think we're going to be here to see the Antichrist. That's just my personal opinion. That's 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. Now, we can have debates and discussions and arguments and all this other stuff about whether I'm wrong on 2 Thessalonians 2 or you're wrong on 2 Thessalonians 2, but that's just how I see it, and that's after a lot of study. So I think that we need to be prepared for difficult times. And right now, I do most of the shopping around here for groceries and that type of thing, just because then I get to eat what I want. But it's not true. But everything looks pretty normal in the grocery stores. Every now and then you'll see. I mean, eggs are pretty expensive, and I'm not going to talk about the cause of that. A friend of mine had his YouTube channel, got a strike on it because he was talking about eggs and what happened. But the price of eggs is up. The prices of things are up. I just have to tell you though, I don't work in an office anymore. What work I do, I work out of the house. But I was driving around yesterday during the middle of the day past a bunch of office buildings, and I've been driving past these office buildings off and on for years, for a couple decades in some cases. And in the middle of the day, like at 11 o'clock, at 3 o'clock, it was shocking to me how few cars there were in the parking lots everywhere. And some of these buildings have parking garages that are almost totally empty. I'm talking 5, 6, 7-story office buildings that have like 15 cars in the parking lot. I've done a lot of work in my legal career in commercial real estate, and I'm just telling you that at some point, they've run out of road to kick the can down, and something's going to happen. And there's been a tremendous destruction of demand for commercial office space. I know law firms that used to have 2 floors of some of the biggest buildings in downtown Columbus. Now they have half a floor. This is happening all over. And so now you have a lot of empty office space. The commercial real estate values are not there to support the loans anymore. And eventually it's going to come time to pay the piper. And it's going to cause a major, I think we'll look back and say, boy, it'd be nice if we could just have the crash of 2008, 2009. I still think that there's a potential food crisis coming. With fertilizer and that type of thing, and seed and that sort of thing available for this next coming planting season, so that next fall and winter it may be very difficult. I started saying a while ago that I didn't think it would hit this year, that there was probably enough in the system to keep it going. But I'm just telling you, I think we're on the cusp of some really difficult times. Let's see. So anyway, so look, I think I'm going to terminate it. Apologize for some of the audio problems I had. Everything was working fine beforehand. I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence, Middle East on Sunday in some degree, to a great degree, and then some of the stuff that happened at Davos, because there's a wealth of information there. If you want to go to the World Economic Forum website, you can go to here. Let me show you what it looks like. So if you go up here, you see WE Forum. There's a thing called program. So you just go to weforum.org/events/World Economic Forum Annual Meeting 2023 programs. You can find it. Just Google it, and you can get like all of the sessions. You go to any day. They have all the different sessions that took place, all the people that participated in the sessions. They have, state of the pandemic, reinventing the wheel, Saudi Arabia's transformation in a changing global context, the future of jobs, why we need battery passports. This was a very interesting session called the quantum tipping point, bringing in what's going to happen when they get quantum chips that are much, much faster than the stuff that we have now. that are going to absolutely blow everybody's mind. So I think you need, I don't know when we all get out of here. I don't know the day or the hour. I just know that I think that there are difficult times coming. I don't think things are going back to the way they were ever again. And so you need to make reasonable preparations to take care of your family. I know that's difficult for people on tight budgets, on fixed incomes, and that type of thing. And we'll talk about energy situation on Sunday. The Dave Walsh at Dave Walsh Energy on Getter was talking on War Room today. And it is just absolutely mind-blowing, the cost of energy in Europe. I mean, people they're struggling to pay to pay. So what is the everlasting covenant in Isaiah? I'll talk about that later. In Zechariah 4:15, who are the two anointed ones standing with the Lord? I'll also talk about that later too. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of Q&A sometimes because I like to think about things before I give an off-the-cuff answer that may or may not be correct. So let me give some thought to these, and I'll address them in a midweek update coming up. So just so you know, just a little bit of future schedule. Sunday, prophecy update at 11 a.m. Eastern. Of course, 9:30 a.m. service at Fellowship Bible Chapel will be streamed, and we'll be back in our Life of Messiah series. And I believe Pastor Charles Atkinson will be talking on the crucifixion this Sunday. If you want to go to what I talked about last Sunday, I kind of went off topic, and I talked about the silence of the shepherds, particularly focusing on some of the developments about Andy Stanley. But I went back and gave you historical background as to where he was 10 years ago, so that's no surprise where he is today. So that's the silence of the shepherds. That's on the Fellowship Bible Chapel YouTube and Rumble channels. Real FPC is the Rumble channel. Next Tuesday, I believe I'm going to be on Hope for Our Times at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific with Tom Hughes. I think that's Tuesday. It might be Monday. Also, Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Eastern, 9 a.m. Central. I will be live with David Fiorazzo on Stand Up for the Truth. That's on February 7th. February 14th, I'm going to do I think it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon Eastern time with Pablo from Serpents and Doves. First weekend in May, I'll be at the Last Days Bible Conference in Calgary, Canada, ldbc.ca, ldbc.ca. I don't know if they have registration or anything there. I haven't looked recently. Carl Kirby's also going to be there. I'm sure he's going to talk about some creation stuff. And then in mid-June, I'll be doing a Moriel conference in the United Kingdom, in England. And I'm not sure what the theme of that conference will be or what the details are on that. You can check the Moriel.org website to see if things are getting posted there. So anyway, so God bless. Thanks so much for listening. And we'll see you you'll see me on Sunday. So now I got to find out. Here we go. Goodbye.